we're going to practice with all of that. Yeah, tonight we're going to be working within our meditation, sort of like naming a conflict or difficulty, learning how to be with that experience, and maybe finding if there's ways to soften the hold on it.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, right. Relationships, in particular, can definitely stir up a lot of things, a lot of craving, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of I know, love. And so we want a chance to approach those experiences with some spaciousness. So if you want to find a comfortable seat, one that feels upright but at ease. Lately I've been like rolling my shoulders back onto my back before I start, so if that feels good and supportive. I invite you to close your eyes, or if it feels comfortable, a soft gaze on the floor in front of you. The meditation will begin and end at the sound of the bell. I meant to do that. Taking a few deep breaths together, in through the nose and out through the mouth. Again, in through the nose and out. One more time, in and out. Just feeling what the body does with those deep breaths. Maybe this is the first time we've really connected to the body today. Just taking a moment to find a connection to our breath in its own rhythm. Sometimes that's in the belly. Some people feel it in the chest or under the nose. And just remembering through this meditation that the breath can always be your anchor. It's always there for you to come back to. And doing a brief body scan, we'll start with the top of the head. Feeling any tension here melt away as we travel down into the temples, our eyes, our jaw, maybe releasing the tongue from the roof of the mouth. Moving down the neck and the shoulders. Really breathing in and out of any spots of tension. And with each exhale, releasing some of it. Moving down into the chest as it expands and contracts with each breath. Finding ease and softness as we move to the belly, letting it relax, letting gravity do what it does. Moving into the lower back and the hips, and breathing in and out of any tension held here. Moving into the thighs, down the legs, into the feet. And just feeling our whole body being held in this moment. There's nothing to do, nowhere else to be. Just giving ourselves the permission to be here. I'd like to begin by inviting you to bring an image to mind of a relationship that you might have in life. One that might have some tension to it, perhaps a little difficulty. We don't want to pick up the heaviest, most difficult thing right now, but something that we can work with. This could be a friend or family, a partner. And just taking a moment to really sit with whatever that difficulty or conflict is. Bringing it to mind and just letting it rest there. And as this image comes to mind, check in with the body. What's coming up? Is this image bringing about some tension? Do you have an urge to maybe clench your hands? Or does your chest feel tight? Did the temperature change? Do you feel yourself getting warmer or cool? There's no right or wrong experience. We're just witnessing whatever's arising. Is the image in your head really vivid? Is it a whole picture being painted? We're not here to change the mind or direct it. Just being present with the experience, being present with the difficulty. And we might find that our mind wants to follow the story. Maybe our conditioned mind is telling us, think of ways to fix it. Or how can I not feel this way about it? Our minds might be telling us to move further away from it or closer. This is just what the conditioned mind does. But right now we're just staying present with the experience. We're not following a storyline. We're not crafting a response. We're just being aware of what comes up in the body, what comes up in the mind, as we sit with this experience. And maybe this is the first time you've really given yourself the opportunity to sit with it like this. Maybe this feels new or scary. That's okay. This is a safe space for us to bear witness to it. And again, if it feels too heavy or if there's too much happening in the mind, we can always return to the breath. There's no prize with staying with this difficulty the longest. However, if you're able to, let's move with this experience. There's a difficulty or a conflict. There are feelings that arise in the mind or in the body in response to that conflict. And can we begin to notice what part of that conflict do we grasp to? What part are we holding on to really tightly? Is that something we can be curious about? Are there areas of this relationship that you don't want to set down? There's no judgment here. No one knows what conflict you chose or what you're navigating. So be curious. Be honest with yourself and what's coming up. And what would it feel like looking at that area that we have a lot of attachment to, that we have a firm grip on? What would it be like if we softened that grip? What comes up in the body at the idea of that? We don't have to let go fully. But what does softening feel like? Does it feel scary at the idea of moving towards setting something down? Is there fear? Is there tension? Anger? Whatever it is, can we be with that feeling? In that experience. Again, we're not finishing a story here. We're not crafting a narrative of how we do it. We're just being with the experience and the feeling of loosening our grip. And now can we move toward imagining what might be on the other side of loosening the grip? Is there room for some ease, Has it created a space to breathe a little easier? Is there potential for new avenues to be pursued? If we let go, what does it feel like to be free of that weight? Again, it might be new or uncomfortable. But be curious about what that could be like, what freedom could be found by setting something down. And try not to go too far on one end of the scale over the other. We're not setting everything down, but just in one of the ways that we're holding really tight. What would it be like? We'll spend the next few minutes in silent practice, exploring what conflict feels like in the body. Can we be with it? What comes up in the body when we imagine setting it down? And what is available to us on the other side? It's a reminder you always have your breath to return to. And the meditation will end at the sound of the bell. Thank you for your practice. We can call out the elephant in the room now. Yes, I hit the gong too loud in the beginning, and then it was too soft at the end, okay? I know. Right. So this week, again, we'll be exploring our final talk in the Untangling the Mind series. And looking at our past weeks, we've explored social anxiety or the fear of being seen. people pleasing and losing yourself. And last week, Andrew talked about the inner critic and overthinking. And tonight we'll end with relationships, boundaries, and letting go. Pretty good way to wrap up Mental Health Awareness Month. And for me, relationships are a consistent place where my mind becomes most tangled. I don't know about you, but it's a pretty surefire way that I'm going to get tangled up when thinking about relationships. It's the attachment I feel to others, or the attachment to things staying the same, deep fear of rejection, for all my ADHDers, rejection, sensitivity, dysphoria, a lot of perceived control that I might have in a relationship, overfunctioning, longing to be understood. The list goes on and on. There's a lot of ways that knots form in my mind. And I used to say to myself over the years, if I didn't care so much, then I wouldn't feel so bad. But through practicing mindfulness, I see that this isn't really the truth. If I cared less, I would still suffer. I would just maybe be an awful person. And I don't suffer because I care. That's like the best part of it's the best end of that scenario. I suffer because my mind clings to things, to fears, to controls, and it abandons itself in relationships with others and myself. And our relationships are mirrors for conditioning. It's a relationship, certainly for my conditioning. And mindfulness helps me approach that mirror from a curious, non-judgmental place where I can really look at the relational habits that I have. And so tonight we'll explore navigating relationships. What do relationships look like? Boundaries as compassion, and the freedom we can find in non-clinging. And so when I think of relationships in my life, the image that comes to mind is a carnival. Some of my relationships feel like a merry-go-round. We're heading in one direction, same speed, little up and down, but for the most part, it's expected. There's some, consistency. It's reliable. And there are others that feel like a fun house. And when I was reflecting on this, I'm like, why do they call it a fun house? Because it's not fun at all. The fun house for me feels like relationships that are a bit of a surprise. You never really know what's around the corner. Always gonna have to feel prepared for the unexpected. It's sometimes fun, mostly unnerving to me. And some relationships are my epitome of awful, which is the spinning teacups. Okay, we all have our version of this. Maybe you love that one but hate another one. I'll let you form your own carnival in your own mind. But the spinning teacups are my worst nightmare. It's like a gradual build to like terrifying whirlwind, feet aren't on the ground, losing grasp of all reality. And there's more, right? A carnival has many versions of this. The roller coaster that's a bit old and rusty. The racing games with like the water, which reminds me of like my work relationships. Like everyone's just like racing towards like being right all the time. So life's a carnival. Now, as someone who doesn't like roller coasters or rides at all, my preferred carnival experience relationship is just a funnel cake, okay? Just like dough with sugar on it, okay? Super sweet. It's all I want, but that's not real. And so, just like those rides, relationships often evoke different responses in us, different responses in our nervous systems. Like immediately with the teacup, I immediately go into flight mode. I'm going the other way, not even getting close. And I was listening to a Tara Brach talk over the weekend about conflict, and she described it like this. She says, conflict is a clash of basic needs wanting to be met. which that in and of itself makes me look at conflict with other people really differently. Their basic need and my basic need are just trying to be met at the same time. And she said, when we label conflict as just bad, we prevent ourselves from waking through it. Waking meaning liberating ourselves through it. And you may know the common saying from the Zen Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh, no mud, no lotus. For those who don't know, lotus flowers literally grow from the muck. Visuals by Margot. And we wake up through the muck. We wake up through the hard and the difficult stuff. And so we can fight, flight, or freeze. And mind you, each has a service in our lives. It's there for a reason, that reaction. But when they start to become relational habits, it's maybe something to be curious about. Are there opportunities within those experiences where instead of fight, flight, or freeze, can we befriend the experience? Can we meet it? And the Buddha teaches that craving is at the root of so much of our suffering. And so where is the craving showing up in my relationships? Am I holding on too tightly to the idea of what this is versus reality? That's often the case. How much suffering comes from relating to our idea of someone instead of who they actually are in this moment? But that's the thing with carnival rides, right? We don't get to control them. I don't get to pick the speed or the direction or the length of time that I have to be on it. I just hand over my ticket and have to surrender to the experience, knowing that it will end eventually. And now surrender in this case doesn't mean stop discerning what's healthy or unhealthy. It's not a complete hands off. But it also doesn't mean staying on every ride. There's something about relationships that ask us to loosen our illusion of control because we know they're impermanent. So can we learn to enjoy the ride? And where the carnival life can become tricky, the carnival of life, I should say, is when we try to get on every ride and eat all the fair food and expect to feel good at the end of the night. So having discernment throughout the night is the difference between enjoying the experience and maybe ending the night in exhaustion. And so when we learn to have boundaries, we become clear in knowing which rides we no longer need to get on. Like for me, the roller coasters are just not for me. And in life, those same boundaries help me recognize which relationships I can engage in healthfully and which ones consistently pull me away from myself. Consistently activate my nervous system. And the goal here is being connected to self as much as possible. And mindfulness begins to help us notice that. When we become present with our experience, we know what expands the heart and also what completely overwhelms it. And when we are able to practice with that, boundaries become a loving, supportive way of creating that distinction, which is very, easier said than done. I know someone had mentioned earlier about people pleasing, and setting boundaries can feel like the total other end of the spectrum, like I'm just being mean or harsh. Is there a way that I can just meet in the middle somewhere? But when we're conditioned to prioritize connections with others over self-trust, boundaries can feel uncomfortable. They can feel like we don't care. And for me, boundaries are scary because I'm deeply concerned with disappointing people. I've always been taught that setting a boundary equates to being selfish in some regard. It feels like rejection or withdrawal. And my heart just wants to be closer and connected and to show others how much I care so they feel in opposition to each other. But mindfulness allows me to have access to myself even in difficult moments. It helps me notice the second that I begin to start overriding myself, right? We practice this in our meditation. What does the body feel like when this conflict comes up? What is happening in our nervous system? It begins to help me realize the moment I start compromising on my boundaries, the moment I begin making accommodations, which no longer feel aligned with me, but it helps settle the external feeling of difficulty. So asking ourselves, how often do we say yes when we internally are feeling no? How often do we stay on rides that make us sick? How often do we keep gripping the safety bar with white knuckles for dear life, hoping that the ride will change somehow? And to me, that's what losing connection to myself feels like. When I'm gripping so tightly to certainty, to craving approval, or trying to keep harmony at all costs, I'm resisting that relationships, like all things, are always shifting. Have you ever held on so tight, white knuckles and all? And how long did that feel good for? Usually not very long, I would guess. So what would happen if we stopped gripping so tightly? If gripping creates suffering, what does letting go look like? What does it feel like? And for me, beyond boundaries, which are already scary to set, letting go for me can be one of the scariest parts of relationships, including the relationship I have with myself. I don't want to let go of the things that I feel are safe or protecting me, even when they're holding me back. And so to me, letting go means giving up. That's how I've always associated it. And that's the last thing that I feel like I want to do. I tend to grip harder. I want to convince myself to try more, fix more, hold tighter. And while letting go could be a physical act, what I'm speaking of tonight is more of the mental act of letting go, loosening the mind's grip. And there are so many grips that we could reflect on when it comes to relationships. The grip that I maybe have on my role in relationships, the identity that I hold within them, the expectations, how people should love me, imagined futures, needing certainty or resolution. And so with letting go, we're not becoming indifferent. We're trusting the unfolding of life. We're not withdrawing from love. We're loving without possession. And this is what the Buddha means when he speaks about upekkha, or equanimity. It's finding steadiness amongst change and remaining open without collapsing. A balanced heart. So can we find some space like that in our relationships? Letting go often begins when we stop negotiating with reality. And through mindfulness, we begin seeing life as it actually is, not only as we wish it would be. Letting go isn't pushing people away. It's releasing the belief that we must abandon ourselves in order to keep love. So a couple of reflections that I leave you with. What would it feel like to trust ourselves enough to release what we cannot control? What becomes possible when love no longer requires self-abandonment? No mud, no lotus, right? But don't forget, there is a lotus. There is a flower. And maybe for us that can look like peace or ease, maybe self-refuge and compassion. I'll leave you with that. Thank you for your time. Take what sticks, leave the rest.